In this video, we are going to preview Iowa versus UConn Final Four matchup. We will go down Degenerate Corner and take a look at the spread as well. We will look at the matchups in detail. All right, before we start, if you like the content, then please consider subscribing to the channel. My goal is to hit 10,000K. I'd really appreciate if you could help me if you haven't subscribed and you enjoy the content. And if you like the video, then please give it a like. All right, here we go. Let's get into this. First, let's go down Degenerate Corner. UConn is plus 2.5. The over-under is 162.5. The evil computer predicts UConn to win 76-74 over Iowa. So there you go, UConn fans. Start your celebration now. It is over. The evil computer has told us it is so. The DraftKings money line has Iowa minus 148 and UConn plus 124. Now, the Hawkeyes have won 20 of 35 games against the spread this season. They are 25 and 15 when they are a 2.5 favorite. The Hawkeyes have played 35 games this season and 24 of them have hit the over. What a surprise. As well, Iowa has won 24 out of 25 games, or 85.7% of the games in which they have been a money line favorite. Now, UConn is slightly better against the spread, going 21 and 35 games against the spread. UConn is 0 and 2 when playing as a 2.5 underdog this season. The Huskies have gone over the over in 22 out of 35 games this season. UConn has lost both games in which they were the underdog as well. They are 0 and 2 when the money line underdog. Now, when looking at the stats, Iowa and UConn are very similar. So I'll go through the offensive stats first. So first, Iowa gets 55 shot attempts a game versus UConn 61. Their field goal percentage from the floor is 49% for Iowa and 49% for UConn. 2-point attempts per game, 36 for Iowa, a little bit more for UConn at 41%. 2-point field goal percentage, 59% for Iowa and 56% for UConn. Again, they're both good shooting teams. 3-point makes 11, which is first in the country for Iowa. Thank you, Caitlin Clark. And 7.1 for UConn. 3-point attempts per game, 29.3 for Iowa, which is sixth most attempts in the country, and 19.6 for UConn. 3-point percentage, 37% for Iowa, 36% for UConn. And then Iowa averages 91 points per game, and UConn averages 79 points per game. So Iowa is a better scoring team, but they both can shoot the ball and score well. And in terms of defense, UConn is slightly stronger than Iowa. I think it's fair to say if you look at the stats. So Iowa holds teams to 39% shooting on the floor versus UConn that's 35%. Iowa holds teams to shooting 30.5% from the three-point line versus UConn, and this might be important, holds teams to shooting 28% from the three-point line. On average, Iowa opponents scored 71 points per game, and UConn opponents scored 56.8 per game. In terms of the matchups, I actually think UConn matches up better with Iowa than they did with USC. I think they'd be very happy with this. So Stolke is 6'2", is their center. Will match up against Edwards 6'3". I assume Falter, who is 5'11" and is replaced quite well Molly Davis, who injured her knee. I think she will be on Ashlyn Shade, or they will be guarding each other. KK Arnold, who is 5'9", will be on likely Gabby Marshall, who is 5'9" as well, and they're very similar. Like sometimes you can get points out of both of those players, and sometimes you don't. And then it's assumed that Nika Mule will be guarding Caitlin Clark. And then finally, I suspect they'll put Paige Beckers on Kate Martin just to make sure that she keeps her under control. Martin is 6 foot and Paige Beckers is listed at 5'11". Obviously, the concern for UConn is that Nika Mule will get in foul trouble guarding Caitlin Clark. They might rotate other people on her. Occasionally, Paige Beckers might rotate on her. It's conceivable to see as well. If you watch the USC game, UConn was switching a lot on picks. So they just made sure they had a strategy in place with Juju. They would ice the pick really hard. They were trying to force her. They were trying to force her to the left. If she got right, they made sure they had somebody behind the person that she got by and sort of set up a wall for her. It was really good. They really had solid defense. They were lucky in the sense that Padilla did not go well in that game. And in a sense, that's why this game, UConn versus Iowa, is tough to call because Iowa is so dependent on the outside shot. You would anticipate, like LSU, they shot the ball well and it looks beautiful. But if they have an off night, if Caitlin Clark has an off night, it's very hard for them to make that up. That would be the nervous thing for Iowa fans. But if they go off and the four players of Falter, Clark, Marshall, and Martin are hitting their shots, then it can make it extremely difficult because you have to sort of choose your poison. If you double off and try to double on to Caitlin Clark, then she can dish to one of her shooters and you get killed there. If you just try to single her up, then she gets to the basket and usually draws a foul. If not a foul, gets an easy bucket. In theory, UConn will do a better job of switching than LSU did and will be able to switch their defense and rotate different defenders on her. If she's crushing them as well, they always have the option of putting Paige Beckers on and saying, okay, here you go, superstar, slow down the other superstar, which I would love to see. I think everybody'd love to see that. Now, I believe the X factor in this game is the UConn bench. Unbelievably, the UConn bench came to play in the last game, so Ice Brady and Cadence Samuels, they gave UConn 33 minutes and 11 points. Ashlyn Shea got in foul trouble at the end of the first quarter against USC, and Cadence Samuels played well. She was long, she hit the shot that she got, and she was very switched on defense. In transition, I could see her looking around. She just did a good job, and it was unexpected, and it was the bonus that UConn needed that really got them over the top. And I think they are going to be very dependent on their bench showing up because Iowa can get you in trouble quickly and make a run on you and make you let go of the rope. And I think the bench will be dependent on making sure they don't get gassed and get run on in the transition game like they crushed LSU. Kim Mulkey said that she felt they let the game get away in the first quarter just with the pace of play. I don't think UConn will mind that much because they like to get in transition and go for it. But with only 5 players previously, that was the worry that they would wear down. But you have hope for UConn as they had a bench last game, so they might have one again. And Cadence Samuels coming in and potentially going on a falter looks like a good option for UConn. Now for this game, I have no prediction. I could see it going anyway. I could see it being a blowout for Iowa if they get a run on and go that way. I could see it being a tight game and UConn winning it, or a tight game and Iowa winning it, or UConn being locked in and sort of winning by 10 over Iowa. I just don't know. And if I gave you a pick, it wouldn't mean anything anyway because I don't know. If I was forced to pick, then I would pick the over. That's what I got. A lot of points being scored in this game one way or another. Here's hoping it's a fantastic game. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.